Now, it's day 158 of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, which continues. It's probing the allegations of criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system. Now, yesterday, IPID Deputy Director of Investigations, Len John, concluded his testimony, raising concerns about the conduct of police task teams in investigating cash and transit robberies and alleged police involvement. Today, a new witness, identified as Witness P, is expected to testify about a clandestine counterintelligence operation involving an organized drug gang. For the very latest on the day's proceedings and the new witness expected to testify, we cross live to SABC News anchor Ayanda Nyathi, who's of course alongside senior reporter Canny Maphanga, both at the Bridgette Mabandla Justice College. A very good morning to you, Ayanda. Perhaps I'll start with a bit of clarity. We understand there is a new witness, but there's also been information that the witness expected today would not necessarily be an individual that is somewhat unknown. He would have been mentioned yesterday quite at length, being the father of a victim we heard of yesterday. So perhaps just give us that clarity. Are we expecting witness F, or it is in fact the father of one of the victims, where we heard Mr. John yesterday speaking extensively about some of those, if you will, call extrajudicial killings, as he framed them as?
What we did receive, Mfundo, is information that a witness P wants to testify fully in camera. That's only expected to be ventilated later in the week. I think tomorrow, actually, that's when that application is likely to be heard. It is unopposed by the evidence leaders. What we know is that witness P is a counterintelligence officer and, in fact, has been involved in going through the transcripts of conversations that have taken place between members of these SAPS task teams that are in sharp focus and these alleged criminal masterminds and criminals, I should say. What we are anticipating today is to hear from a Gregory Loftus. His name, as you've mentioned, has been mentioned before. He is the father of one of the individuals who were gunned down allegedly at the instruction of a criminal rival, essentially, who was using these SAPS members allegedly to carry out work in their interests. Canny Maphanga is our senior reporter who's been here and has been watching all these developments throughout the course of the past couple of months. And Canny, we're going to continue with the stream of alleged SAPS hit squads as they were. Yesterday, we heard from the Deputy Director of Investigations and IPID, essentially painting a picture of officers who are paid by criminals to carry out their dirty work.
Indeed. Good morning to you, Ayanda, and to the viewers at home. And it certainly ties into the allegation of alleged infiltration, because what is being alleged through this evidence of extrajudicial killings is that there's a risk of infiltration by these alleged toe-tracking drug gangs. That's how they described in the statement of Len John, who allegedly used these different task team members or SAPS members in the KZN province to basically settle scores with one another. And even though he highlighted 3 task teams, the cash and transit task team under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Dina Govender becomes the most crucial, because it is the Bevan Loftus murder that we're expected to expand on today, because we do know that his father had filed an application the day before his death or alleged murder at the hands of police. It was on the 31st of March 2023 that he tried to turn to the High Court to stop them from pouncing on his son, which, because that was informed by an earlier note he had gotten, which was seemingly seen as something that was set to taunt him ahead of their alleged plans, because he alleges in his affidavit that they allegedly told him that they're not there to arrest Bevan when they were looking for him. They told him to actually speed up his, or make sure his policies, let's put it that way, were up to date, because that they were going to allegedly kill him, or at least that's what they said to the father, that is Gregory Loftus, who's also a former cop, by the way, and also has different views about the profile of his son, Bevan Loftus, who he says was running a successful tow tracking business in Durban, but we do know that he's also tied to alleged gangs and drugs in Durban, in the city, and that is how this rival response, if we could put it that way, came about between himself and Clive Nyka, who is alleged to be the other alleged rival gang leader. And that is the person, that is Clive Nyka, who is alleged to have commissioned Lieutenant Colonel Dina Govender to allegedly deploy his task team to effectively kill Bevan Loftus. So that is the evidence that is being tested so far. And in terms of the terms of reference of the Madlanga Commission, it deals with the question not so much of the extrajudicial killings, because that's not part of their terms of reference, but more of this risk of an infiltration where certain syndicates can use task team members to further their own alleged interests.
Yeah, and we heard that part of the suspicion here is that monies were paid because later on Bevan Govender apparently buys a property for around 2.5 million rand, despite the fact that he only earns less than 26,000 rand insofar as the take-home is concerned. Kenny, I just want to pause and take us back to yesterday's testimony, because at some stage, Mr. Len speaks about the challenges that they face as IPID when it comes to how police typically carry out their investigations. And part of the things that he highlighted is that what they have found is that in most of these cases where there are extrajudicial killings, sometimes members of the media are alerted first before IPID is even made aware of that scene. Take a listen.
IPID has identified that media personnel are regularly contacted prior to IPID officials being notified of killings. There are instances where IPID learns of SAPS killings through social media posted by journalists. So when you look at your Facebook page, you'll see a shooting that happened even in Inanda, which is not even 30 kilometers from the office. You learn of it via social media, and when you get there, you'll see a reporter on the scene. There have been instances where members involved in shootings where members of the public are killed, they leave the crime scene with their firearms before IPID attends the scene. And this prevents IPID from uplifting primary residue from the members and complicates the matters with respect to the inspection of the firearms.
That's Gregory.
All right, so there you have it. You can see on your screen now, Gregory Loftus is currently in the witness box. In case you missed it, that is the father of Bevan Loftus, one of the alleged victims who essentially came into the crosshairs of these alleged rogue officers, part of these task teams carrying out extrajudicial killings, essentially on the behest of their criminal rivals. And Kenny, what also became clear from the picture that Mr. John painted yesterday is that there's a modus operandi in how these task teams operate. You know, they sometimes pounce in the dead of night, and in other instances operate with vehicles that have fake registration plates.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and Len John contends that there's a purpose behind the way that they do things in terms of the accountability mechanisms. He says that usually these officers are in plain clothes, so they're not easily recognizable as officers. That serves two purposes. In other instances, it's a legitimate way of fighting crime, but in other instances, it can conceal alleged unlawful conduct by police officers. He also states that when they come in their numbers, and the suspect is usually in a more vulnerable position. And he also states that it usually happens late at night, where it minimizes the number of witnesses that could attest to what could have possibly taken place at the scene. He also raises another characteristic about how the stories or the defense never makes sense, like it never adds up to the scene. So he says that although they always claim it's the suspects that attack first, when they comb the scene, nothing points to that particular allegation or claim. So we expect his father to delve into further information about the Bevan Loftus incident that becomes quite critical to understanding whether or not there is an infiltration in the task teams in KZN.
All right, Canny Maphanga, thanks very much indeed. As you've heard, there's that announcement from Jeremy Michaels calling the room to order. Up next is Gregory Loftus, who's lost his son due to these alleged extrajudicial killings.